How's it going, everybody? Hope you're all doing well today. So, today I'd like to talk about the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake that is allegedly in the works at Ubisoft. When Assassin's Creed Black Flag came out originally, it took a lot of fans by storm. Mainly because you had access to a big ass ship. Now, in Assassin's Creed 3, there were some naval missions that you could take part in. However, in Black Flag, the thing that they did that was so revolutionary for the genre was allowing you to turn that ship into your own mobile headquarters. So you could take your boat, the Jackdaw, you could sail wherever you wanted to, and you could engage in naval combat with other enemies. So, for example, if you saw a merchant ship on the horizon, or some soldiers, and they've got some good loot that you want, you can bet your ass that you can go and sink them. Now, the nice thing about the naval combat was that they kind of shook it up a bit depending on what size of the ship you were attacking. You could have different objectives to complete if you end up boarding them in order to keep the ship for yourself, to repair your ship, or to lose your wanted level. There were many other options as to how you could go about doing that. Namely, you could board them and then have to kill scouts, kill the captain, maybe even blow up gunpowder barrels or cut the flag off the top of their boat so that they lose morale. It's an interesting way that they randomize the combat encounters, and albeit not to a very deep degree, but enough that it would keep things fairly fresh. It was fairly simple, but it worked quite well. Aside from that, another thing that they did that was absolutely fantastic at the time was allowing the player, while they were sailing along, to jump off the side of their boat into the middle of the ocean if they wanted to. If you wanted to jump off the side of your boat to go and explore a speck of land that you spotted on the horizon, you could sail up to it, jump off, wait onto the land, and go see what there was. Most of the time it could be things like a treasure chest, a map, a bottle, something, or it could be nothing. But the fact that you could do that in and of itself was amazing at the time. Hell, it's even amazing nowadays. There's a sense of freedom in Assassin's Creed Black Flag that players can experience. And I think that sense of freedom is one of the things that drew so many fans in originally and got us excited to play the game. Now for me, I'd like to see a complete lack of loading screens. I believe that hardware we have available today is more than possible to allow the remake to allow players to enter cities, large islands like Havana or Kingston without any loading screens. So one of the best feelings in the original game was when you came up to a small port town or one of the smaller islands, you could take your ship, find the port or harbor, and just pull in. You could jump off your ship, you can go explore, and you can go back to your ship, and you can set sail without any loading screens at all. Now that in and of itself was an amazing feeling, and unfortunately, due to the hardware limitations at the time, the bigger cities and islands did have loading screens. They weren't the longest in the world, and they did use that general Assassin's Creed formula where your character would be standing, you could run around, or you could swing your sword for a bit just to pass the time. It gave you something to do while it was loading, so you weren't just staring at a blank screen, waiting to get back into the meat of the matter, the action. But imagine playing the game without ever having to go away from that action. I think when it comes to the remake, this should be one of their most important concerns to address, to ensure that people are able to explore at their own pace. Because of the improvement in hardware and technology and raw horsepower that we have available now, we could do with improvements to enemy and crowd AI, something like smoother combat animations, smoother animations as a whole, better textures, larger cities, and just an overhaul of the base mechanics of the game. Personally, I think the storyline in Black Flag is amazing as it is, and I don't think any changes would have to happen. The reasons I feel that is because it was very clear, very concise, and you had a varied cast of interesting characters. They had variety, they displayed emotion in believable and realistic manners, and they drew you into the experience. Edward Kenway, the main character of the game, begins as a pirate. He's someone who's come to the Caribbean in search of his fortune. He's even left his family behind in Wales to do that. Now, because of the way that things go down in the beginning of the game, you get a hold of rather sensitive information from the assassins, and at the time, you decide to take that information to those who would pay you for it, which are the Templars. Now, throughout the course of the game, Edward, who started off as someone who was motivated by not much else but the clink of coin rather than his moral compass, slowly starts to develop into a character who does care for others and starts to take a stand on events that are bigger than him. Of course, things don't always turn out the way that they should, and sometimes things tend to go rather badly throughout the course of the story. But the important thing is that it drags you in and keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I still remember the first time I was playing the game. One of the most amazing experiences for me was getting my ship for the first time and just sailing it. I didn't even stop off at any of the islands. And it was beautiful. I was sailing along the waves, they were crashing against the hull, and there were dolphins alongside me. It felt incredibly immersive. And I feel that with this remake, Ubisoft needs to focus on that immersion. There's something about the lightning in the bottle that they captured with the original game, and I think they still have that magic there. All they have to do is give it a professional facelift, make it look a bit better, make it play better, and fans will flock to it and love it. I think they've got a really strong position to work off here. And from my point of view, I'm hoping they don't fumble it. Seeing as how they've done relatively well with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think that would give them a boost of confidence. In fact, I hope it gives them the boost of confidence that they sorely need, because the things that they have worked on in the past have been, in my humble opinion, top tier. Not just Assassin's Creed, but things like the earlier Far Cry games, the earlier Prince of Persia games. Those early renditions that they had made, for example, The Sands of Time, Far Cry 2, they were so damn good. And they gripped the player and were enthralling. So for me, what I'd like to see with this remake is a return to form, and not just saying a return to form like they did with, say, the likes of Assassin's Creed Mirage, which in and of itself wasn't a terrible game. However, I do feel like they said they were returning to form and it didn't exactly feel that way. I hope they are able to see that the magic that they had, to find the magic that they had again, and inject that into this better, newer version of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Because I know that they've still got it, it's just a question of how they use it. In the end, they're more than capable of doing it. I know they are, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Those are my thoughts, and thank you for listening.